What if this silence wasn't a goodbye, but a pause? What if Allah never said, "It's over," but only, "Not now"? There are bonds that time doesn't destroy. There are presences that leave your life, but never your heart. You've tried everything to move on, but your soul refuses to forget. What if it wasn't an obsession, but an intuition? Today, this message is for you, because Allah is whispering to your heart, this person is coming back. It's not over, and this time, it's me who brings you back. Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear could confirm what your heart has long felt. 1. The detour wasn't the end, but a divine school. You thought it was over. The silences, the distance, the emptiness that had settled in, everything inside you screamed breakup. But what you called the end, Allah called a transition. Not a punishment, not a rejection, a school. There are separations that Allah allows not to take something from you, but to relieve you of what you could no longer bear. He doesn't remove people from your life without reason. He moves, He adjusts, He rewrites, and sometimes He pushes away those He intends to bring back, but in a better state. The attachment you felt wasn't false. It wasn't an illusion, but it needed to be purified. Because loving someone sincerely isn't just wanting their presence, it's wanting their good, even if that good involves distance. And Allah, in His perfect wisdom, saw what you couldn't see. He saw that to build you up, you first had to be deconstructed. Not to destroy you, but to realign you. This kind of separation is like a heavenly silence. We don't understand at the time. We scream, we cry, we beg, and yet the sky remains calm. But this silence is Allah at work. He shapes you in secret. He rebuilds your heart with heavenly materials. He prepares your soul to love in a way you could never have imagined. You thought it was over, but Allah already saw the return. And this return is not a simple physical reunion. It is not just two people reuniting. It is two souls who have learned to prostrate themselves before speaking. Two hearts that have understood that love is not looking at each other. It is looking in the same direction, with Him between you. This distance was necessary. This pause was necessary. Not because you weren't meant for each other, but because you weren't yet meant for union. Allah doesn't allow the union of two souls until they are ready to place Him at the center. He doesn't approve of a bond based on emotional dependence, but He blesses a bond built on spiritual connection. What you are experiencing right now is not a punishment. It is a divine education, a phase where Allah teaches you patience, detachment, and sincerity. And when He deems your heart ready, your intention aligned, your soul understood, then He will reunite what He had separated. But this time, with a light you didn't have before. That detour wasn't a mistake. It was a step. And now that you understand this, you can look back at that distance not with regret, but with confidence. Because if Allah wrote the return, it was not to repeat the old, but to reveal the new. 4. Pain was a bridge, not a prison. There are pains that cry out, and others that whisper. For a long time, silently, in the corners of the soul, you cried in the dark. You doubted when everything shone around you. You prayed with a broken voice that no one heard except Him. For Allah is never deaf to hearts that break in secret. Each tear you shed was a stone placed on a bridge that carried you across. Not a fall, not an end, but a crossing. You thought you were trapped in this pain, but in reality you were moving. You were moving forward, even on your knees. You were progressing, even in apparent immobility. Because what you didn't see was Allah shaping your heart in silence. He polished your love. He refined your vision.
He rekindled within you a light that human attachment had dulled. He never abandoned you. He simply isolated you to rebuild you. And if he now allows this person to return to your life, it's not because you remained frozen. It's because you have become capable of carrying this bond with more faith, more gentleness, more tawakkul. The pain didn't destroy you. It disarmed you. And sometimes you have to empty yourself of your weapons to welcome a love that comes from Allah. Because a heart armed with fear, control, or ego cannot love with rahmah. You see, what you thought was a punishment was actually a purification. And what hurt you also opened you up. Allah did not chain you to this ordeal. He prepared you. And if now you feel it's not over, if your heart thrills at the thought that something sacred is returning, it means your suffering was not in vain. It was a school, a silent school where you learned to love differently. You learned to love without idolizing, to hope without demanding, to give unconditionally, but with the conviction that everything you do for Allah returns to you by another path. Now your heart is more tender, and paradoxically, stronger, because it no longer depends on a human presence, but on a celestial connection, a connection that kept you going when no one saw it. This return you feel coming is not a sentimental return. It is a sacred return, the kind of return only Allah can write, the kind that goes through pain but doesn't stop there. You made it through, and what you find now is a version of yourself capable of loving without chains, because you understood. Pain was a bridge, not a prison.
6. Allah's timing is perfect. Even when it seems late, you thought it was over, because nothing moved, because the silence dragged on, because the prayers seemed to fly by unanswered. And you said to yourself, "It's over. I must turn the page." But what you called delay was Allah preparing the right time, for your heart looks at time impatiently, but Allah looks at the moment with perfection. You see the void. He sees the evolution. You see the absence. He sees the transformation. Nothing He writes comes too soon, and nothing arrives too late. He knows the seasons of souls, the invisible cycles, the silent healings. And sometimes it's not yet the right time to meet that person's gaze again, because neither you nor they are yet where He wants you to be. You say, "But it's been a long time." And Allah answers you, wordlessly but mercifully, "Not yet, but soon, and better." When Allah promises something, it's not an empty promise. It's an invisible guarantee, wrapped in a wisdom we don't understand at the time. You just have to hold on, with your heart clinging to Him. Just because messages are no longer sent doesn't mean the feelings are dead. Just because there's no longer contact doesn't mean there's no longer a connection. Just because you don't hear from Him anymore doesn't mean you've been forgotten. Perhaps the other person is learning what you learned while waiting. Or perhaps it's you, the one who still had things to unlearn before being able to love as Allah wants you to love. Remember, the moon goes through phases, but even when it seems to have disappeared, it's still there. Similarly, this connection may seem extinguished, but if Allah says He will rekindle it, nothing can stop its light. And even if you don't know when, even if you no longer have any visible clues, you can have certainty in the invisible. That's tawakkul. It's not hoping that everything will happen now. It's believing that everything will happen at the right time, with the right person, in the right frame of mind. Because Allah is in charge. So calm down, breathe in, stop counting the days, the silences, the gaps, and start counting on Him, the one who has never forgotten you, the one who, at this very moment, is working on what your heart does not yet see. What is for you? Even time cannot erase it. And when Allah says, "I will bring you back together,"
It is not a maybe. It is an insha'Allah, sealed by His wisdom and destined to blossom at the exact moment, not before. You see now that it was not just a matter of feelings. It was a divine writing. Allah never abandons sincere hearts. He guides them, He repairs them, and sometimes He reunites them. If this message spoke to your soul, if something within you was awakened while listening to it, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this video, save it, comment on what your heart felt, and subscribe to receive more reminders like this. Because it may be that this is just the beginning of what Allah has in store for you.
2. Signs aren't always spectacular, but they are real. There are things we feel and don't dare tell anyone. Sensations that seem too light to be explained, but too heavy to be ignored. You think of that person, and an unusual peace fills you. Not euphoria, not obsession, just tranquility. A quiet sweetness, as if your heart recognizes something your reason doesn't yet understand. And that moment in prayer, that little shiver as you make dua. You know who you're talking about to Allah, but you don't understand why your heart is so calm at that moment. It's not your imagination. It's Allah who speaks silently. These are signs, but signs that don't shout. They whisper. There is a kind of connection that cannot be measured in words nor in time. This kind of connection isn't noisy. It isn't found in social networks, messages, or fading memories. It's elsewhere. In a dream you didn't create. In a thought that returns without forcing. In an inner voice that has never left you despite the seasons. When Allah connects two souls for a purpose, He leaves traces. Not necessarily visible, but tangible. He makes you feel a stability without explanation, a coherence you've never known elsewhere. There are people you meet, and you feel it's not by chance. You feel that their presence elevates you. And even when they're absent, they leave within you a version of yourself you've never met. You may be surrounded by other faces, other voices, but none of them trigger this calm. Why? Because it's not just a person, it's a spiritual guide. You don't need a miracle to understand this. You just need silence and listening. Because the signs your heart receives are answers to prayers your tongue may never have uttered. This connection doesn't depend on human interaction. It depends on what Allah grants you invisibly. He may have taken this person away from you for a time, but He left a thread. This thread does not break with distance. It does not fade with forgetfulness, because it is not made of memories. It is made of light, a light that only those who walk with sincerity can perceive. You don't need everyone to understand, because what you feel has not been sent to everyone. It is your sign, and if you have received it, then know that it is not an illusion. It is Allah who is preparing something that your eyes cannot yet see, but that your heart is already beginning to recognize. 3. Love that returns after being lost is stronger when guided. There are loves that fall. There are those that flee. And then there are those that drift apart, only to return better. Not like a circle that starts again at the same point, but like a spiral that returns higher, more conscious, more luminous. When two souls find each other after experiencing distance, it is not a coincidence. It is a divine intention. It is no longer an impulsive love, but a healed love. A love that no longer rushes, a love that bows before becoming attached. Because in the meantime, Allah has cleansed this bond, not with forgetfulness, but with wisdom. He has allowed it to endure pain, distance, and incomprehension. And that's where love learned to breathe without being dependent. That's where the soul learned to love without becoming attached to anything other than Him. You see, Allah does not unite hearts randomly. He is Al-Wadud, the one whose love is pure, vast, and flawless. And when he decides to bring someone back into your life, it's not so that you relive the past. It's so that you discover a new version of the bond, an aligned, elevated, guided version. Before, you may have loved with your emotions. Now you will love with your souls. Before, you sought to satisfy yourselves. Now you will seek to please Allah together. Because this bond, as He has rebuilt it, is no longer simply an emotional bond. It is a spiritual alliance. This return is not just a reconciliation. It's an ascension. It's proof that a tested bond can become a refuge. It's as if Allah placed this bond in His hands to be readjusted. And now, He returns it to you, not as a debt, but as a sacred gift. You'll notice that this time, nothing is the same as before. Even your gaze will have changed. Even your words will have the flavor of gratitude, because you know what it costs to lose, and you will know what it's worth to find again. When Allah guides a bond, it becomes light. He becomes a direction, not a distraction. This kind of love doesn't push you to forget yourself, but to find yourself. And above all, to put Him at the center of everything. So if that person returns, with a heart that remembers Him, with gestures that honor His presence, don't doubt. This is not a random return. It is the return your soul has been waiting for and that heaven has prepared. 5. When Allah brings someone back, it's not to replay the old movie stop for a moment. Consider carefully what you feel. This desire to relive, or this fear of reliving exactly what you've already been through. You may be thinking, what if it starts again like before? What if I suffer again? But let me remind you of one thing. Allah never repeats for nothing. When He brings someone back into your life, it's not a replay. It's not the replay of a familiar, worn out, and already hurtful movie. It's a script entirely rewritten by His wisdom. And you are no longer the same person, and neither is this person. You didn't go through the fire to return to the beginning. You went through the fire so that your heart would be truer, purer, and more ready. This return is not a loop, it's an elevation. But be careful. You must be ready not to replay the old scenario. You will have to speak differently. Not with ego, but with hikmah. Not to be right, but to build. You will have to forgive, not because you forget, but because you choose the peace that Allah prefers. You will have to love, not because the other fills a void, but because Allah has taught you to love for Him. You will have to set healthy boundaries. Say no when necessary. Say yes consciously. Because this return, if it is truly desired by Allah, will require maturity, spirituality, and clarity from you. There is a difference between a return dictated by nostalgia and a return orchestrated by divine Rahmah. One repeats mistakes, the other repairs them. One goes around in circles, the other builds straight. And if you feel that this person returns with an aligned heart, a new posture, a more peaceful silence, then you will understand that it is not a coincidence. It is a second heavenly chance. But don't waste it with old reflexes. You must dare to speak the truth. You must dare to say what you never had the strength to say. You must pray together where you used to run away from each other. And above all, you must leave Allah at the center this time. You see, when Allah rewrites a story, He doesn't erase everything. He leaves the scars visible so that you don't forget the lessons. But He gives you new ink to write what comes next. Not a copy of the past, a rebirth. So if you come back to this person, or they come back to you, ask yourself, am I ready to build a new future? Or do I simply want to return to the comforts of my old self? Because if it is Allah who brings back, it's not to make you stagnate, it's to make you grow.